Hello, my name is Engineering and welcome back to my short tutorial series on Adobe Premiere Pro. This week we're going to be learning a little bit about the effect controls as well as some of the different overlays and graphics we can insert into our videos, such as zooming in as well as speeding up and slowing down our clips. And we're also going to be learning about, as I mentioned before, some of the graphics that Adobe Premiere Pro offers to us for free that are not copyright, as well as text and subtitles as well, and how to change the font, the size, as well as what the text. Can you hear me? Can I speak? Yes, okay, excellent. Change what is being said on screen in the text, and we'll also be covering a few other functions as well as different ways we can streamline this using different keyboard shortcuts, so feel free to stick around until the end of the video to see what I have to offer. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing that we want to do, of course, is get our video all edited and make sure that we have our assembly all meshed together so that we can add in all of the overlays into one giant project instead of strewn across a bunch of different sequences and then trying to get it all together. So I'm going to make the assembly right now. So as you can see, I've already begun the recording process. I've made sure that everything has been all organized, that there are different bins for the different pieces of footage, music, overlays, sequences, and I've already begun working on my first sequence right here, and I've even made some edits to the sequence. But one thing that I want to do before we start getting into the different effects, such as zooming in or speeding up clips, is a little tool that I actually learned fairly recently that I wish I taught in my first tutorial because it's actually pretty useful for beginners. So sometimes you may end up with a ton of clips that you don't know what to do with, but there are certain parts of those clips that you really like and that you want to add into your video, but you don't want to use you only want to use like just a few seconds and not the entire clip. You don't want to drag it into your timeline. You don't want to mess up your workflow. So one thing that you can do is, let's go over to footage and let's take this second take of my introduction to this tutorial video, O2 footage. Just double click this and it will pop up in the source window right here. So one thing that we can do is something called an in and out point. An in and out point is essentially these little blue brackets on the side. We can drag these inward or outward, and this is going to be the in point. Wherever we drag this point is where the video is going to start. So if we have this in the middle of our clip here, the playhead will immediately start from this point right here. And this one over on the left is going to be our out point. So our clip will only play from here to here. So we could just drag these from side to side and try to find those precious few seconds that we really want to add into our video. Or we could do something that is much more efficient than just dragging these around. Let me show you. So I moved the playhead to the point where I want our little clip to start here. So it's going to be at the tail end. And what I can do is just press I for in. So let's do I for in. And as you can see, the bracket automatically moved all the way from over here to over here. So if we use a keyboard shortcut, just click I when we selected the source page. And if we move over to the end, if we press O, the little bracket on the left here will automatically move into where the playhead is centered. Now, if we insert this clip into our timeline, it will only show these highlighted seconds right here. Some ways that we can do that is just by clicking and dragging the video right here and putting it into our footage or sequences section, like so, and it will add an extra copy. Or if we wanted to only do our video and not audio, we could drag this little video reel right here and drag it into our footage or into our timeline. Or if we only wanted the audio, we could do the same with this little audio track right here. So let's just take this entire clip and move it into footage, and then we will get started with zooming in. Before we actually start zooming in, we need to actually find the place where we will be zooming in. So in order to find this and actually keep track of where it's located, one thing that we can do is zoom in to our timeline to see the different wavelengths, to see where the different points are in the video. And we will go over to the place where I say zooming in. This is the point where I say zooming in, and it's just going to be a real quick zoom into my face, just so that it's real quick, snappy. You see what exactly the function entails. tool is, and this is the point where I say it. One way that we can keep track of where it is at all points is to add something called a marker, and this will essentially highlight the starting point of where I say it. And one way how we can add this marker is by right-clicking the top of the playhead and adding a marker. And as you can see, a little yellow dot here appeared at the top, and if we move the playhead over to the side and click this marker here, the playhead automatically goes back to that marked point. This is a very effective tool for keeping track of what needs to go where, or if you want to match up different graphics or edits to any music that you'll be adding into your videos. I'm just going to also find the place where I stop saying zooming in. But one way that we can make a marker without having to right-click the playhead at all times is to just use a little keyboard shortcut by making sure that the timeline is selected and we click M. And a little marker will appear above the playhead automatically, and we can shift between both playheads just by between both markers just by clicking on them. And now we know the exact point where I begin saying zooming in and stop saying zooming in. So it'll be between these 2 points where we'll zoom in. So I'm just going to make a quick little Control K between both of these, so we have our little section segmented. And I'm going to select this, go over to Window and select Effect Controls, and now we have in motion right here. We can do a little drop down, and we have a few different options. One of these is scale. Now scale ensures that we can zoom into our little clip here. Let's put the playhead over here. So as you can see, we get moving over to the right, the numbers increase, the clip zooms in. Moving over to the left, the numbers decrease, it zooms out. So we want to zoom in, and we can reposition the camera by using the position scale right here and zooming the x-axis left to right and the y-axis up to down. And this seems just about good enough. It gets enough of my dumb face just to make it satisfactory. So let's see how this looks. Wonderful, wonderful. Or if we wanted to add in a little bit more of an effect, we could also tilt the camera and make sure it's rotated so that I come off to the side, either side, but we don't necessarily need to do that at this moment. But rotation is essentially right under position and scale in the motion section. Next, I want to speed up the point between where I snap around here and where I snap around here. So let me just make sure that these points in between the snaps are not going to be sped up. So let me just make some cuts real quick. Okay, and now we have our little cut right here, and this is the point where we'll be speeding up my transition from a t-shirt to a sweatshirt. One way that we can do this to speed this up is to right-click our desired section, and then we can select speed/duration. Now there are two different functions to this. Now speed, it just 100% is the regular average speed. So if we wanted to double the amount of speed, we would put in 200 and then say okay. And now the speed is around half the length. So let's see how fast I get up here. That's fine, but it's a little bit inaccurate. So we'll set that back. Another thing that we could do, go back to speed and duration, is set the duration to make sure that instead of it going on for 28 seconds, we can make sure this goes on for around 3 seconds. And now the speed automatically matches the amount of time that the duration goes on for. So now the speed is at 720%. And if we press OK, it is much, much faster. So let's see how fast I get up here. Excellent. So we could do that, or there is another tool in our basic tools section here that we can use. This is called the rate stretch tool. And once we select this, there will be some brackets on the side between the cuts that we made, and we can stretch this so that it goes like that. And now it is about 4 or 5 seconds long, and it has the same effect as the duration tool. So we could do that selection, or alternatively, we could also just hold R, and that automatically makes the rate stretch tool pop up, and we can just make the selection right here, and it immediately zooms in. Set the playhead to the end of this point here, press W, And now everything matches up perfectly. So that's how you speed up your clips in the easiest way possible. And I'm sure that if you couldn't already tell, the way that you slow down your clips is the exact opposite way that you speed them up. So if you were to select your desired clip, go to speed and duration, and you wanted to move this duration over to the right, make it go on for 23 seconds, which is quite a while. I then move at the speed of a snail. So I'm going to just fix that up right here, or I could do the rate selection tool, essentially have that be the same function. The next thing that we want to learn is how to insert Adobe's pre-made copyright-free graphics. And how we start out is we want to find the place where we want to insert our graphic. And as you can see, I already put down a couple markers here. I just want it to be short in between these two little spots. And what I can do now is go over to the Window tab, select Essential Graphics, and a tab will pop up on the right with a few different selections that we can make. And if we hold our cursor over them, it'll show us a little preview of what the caption or the graphic will look like. I quite like this one, so I'm gonna select this and drag it over into the timeline. Just like that, our graphic is inserted, and it looks like that. Now, I don't want it to be labeled Your Title Here. I don't really like the font. I think it's too thin. It doesn't stand out. What we can do to edit this is go over to the Edit section in Essential Graphics, select this, and as you can see, a few different options up here. And since this is called Your Title Here, we'll select Your Title Here, and we'll have a few different options to change what the text and the little animation will look like. So we can make it align differently than how it is. It's currently in the center. We can make it align to the right if we wanted, or to the left, but we like it just center. We can reposition it using the position tool, up or down, left or right. We could also make it a little bit more transparent if we chose, so it's even harder to see than it already is. We can make it bigger using this tool if we wanted, but we don't really need to do that. And we could also select the font that we want to use using the text tool right here. And let's choose something fairly simple, such as, let's go with Impact, something simple. And we can, again, align it differently than how it originally is. We can italicize it right here. We can make it all caps, which it already is. And we could also change the color, if we so chose, using the appearance section right here. The fill is going to be what the color will look like on screen. And as you can see, it's already turned red if we make it red. It turns aqua if we make it aqua, so I'll just leave it like that. Stroke is essentially the outline around the text. So if we select stroke, then as you can see, it has a little black outline, but if we wanted to make it white, then it appears as white right there. And we could also, using this little stroke width tool, making it go left or right, we can make it thinner so it doesn't fill out everything. If we wanted a background, that just adds a little background to make things appear. It makes it a little easier for you to see, but we don't really want that. Or we could also add a shadow, which is a pretty cool technique. It helps it stand out. As you can see, if we change the shadow here to something like blue, there's a little blue hue around this. Alternatively, we can use the eyedropper tool. Same thing goes for these other pieces in the fill section, and make the color something that is already on screen. But I quite like the black, so I'm just going to keep it like that. We can reposition the shadow to make it go wherever we want. We can make the shadow stand out a little farther from the text. A whole bunch of different things. And if we wanted to change the text, we could just simply click on it, delete, and just type in whatever we choose. And as you can see, it's just simple graphics. Let's reposition it so that it's at the bottom. Put it right there. And it seems to go on for the exact right length that I want it to go on for. It just comes in, stays for the entire duration of time that I talk about graphics, and then leaves. That's just about perfect. And I could go into further detail, but that is the essential basics of adding graphics into your videos. And you have a bunch of different options that Adobe has in its graphics selection. And you could also add in music essentially the same way, but you'd have to fill out which genre it is, what kind of mood it would be filling. But it's essentially the same deal where you select the kind of music you want, just drag it into the timeline, and you're good to go. Text is a little bit more straightforward than graphics because it's just stationary text usually, unless you add in some special animation effect that I don't really know how to do yet. But you just add text on screen, it stays there, there's no animation to it. And the way how you can access text is you can either go down here to the type tool in the basic controls here, and you select this and then just drag this across and type in whatever you want. Or you could use Control T and add in new text right there. Use a selection tool and then type in whatever you want. And the way how we edit this is by going here and then selecting Effect Controls. And the way how we edit this is just by right-clicking the selected text and hitting Edit Properties. And you have essentially the exact same layout as graphic controls. So if I wanted to switch this to a little bit more of a pinkish hue, I could do that. Use the eyedropper tool for what's on my hat, so make it a little bit more of a let's make it a little bit more dark gray. Yeah, that seems just about right. I'll reposition it to make it go at a little bit at the top here. Let's make the shadow a little bit closer here so it's not as distracting. Enlarge it, and that seems just about right. It's fairly simple. It goes on for a little longer than I want it to, so I'm just going to make the bracket a little bit smaller and have it meet with my markers at the top, so it only shows up for a split second. Excellent. So that's how you insert text. Now, in case you want to add subtitles into your video, but you don't want to add a bunch of text manually, unless, of course, you are a tryhard and you make an animated subtitles and you want every little detail to be just right, but unless you're like that and you just want regular subtitles in your video, what you can do is create Adobe's animated subtitles and create a transcription of what is being said in the video. This is pretty simple to do, but before I create automated subtitles, what I want to do is create an in and out point from like around here to around here, because I don't want subtitles throughout the entirety of my video. So I'm going to create an in and out point from when I say subtitles to when I stop speaking at this point. So it'll be around right here. I'll click I, and then I will go to the end and click O, and now we have a little section right here. This will all be subtitled. So we go over to Window and we select Text. And we have a few different options. We'll see captions, we'll see graphics, which shows the animation that we've inserted as well as the text, but we'll go over to transcript. And typically, I'll show an image on screen. You will see an option to transcribe sequence. You just select create transcription. But since I already made a transcription of this video earlier, what I'll do is just go over to the three dots right here, click retranscribe, and you'll see something like this. You'll have a few different options for selecting the language, speaker labeling, so we don't separate the speakers. We want the audio to be just audio 1 because I'll be adding in music later, and I don't want this to transcribe any music by accident and screw up the closed captions. So I'm just going to select audio 1, and then I'm going to transcribe in point to out point only, so only this section and not the whole video. Click transcribe, wait for it to load, and as you can see, we have a transcription ready right here. To create captions, we go up to this little corner right here, click create captions, and we have subtitle default, which is just fine. Create captions, wait for it to load again, and we have our closed captions right here. Now, before we go onward and stop and close this little tab right here, we want to make sure that we have all the subtitles correct, that there's nothing screwed up. So I found one little mistake, and you got to be careful for this, but it's not that big. It's subtitles as well and how to change the font size. So I'll just double click this, and we can change the text right here, and it's as simple as that. And we could also add punctuation as well if we wanted to, but that's a little overkill. So let me just make a couple more edits. So I did something real quick off camera. What I wanted to do is add in a little section where I wanted to change the text that is on screen. So right as I'm saying what the text says on screen, I wanted it to say something completely different. What I'm doing is going to press here, and I will do split caption, and this will add an entirely separate caption in between the blank between here and here. So I can put in most whatever I want. So I'm just going to say a little self-deprecating humor. And then after this, I'm going to change the font to wingdings or webdings in between these points right here for my little joke. So the way how we do this is by going over here, and let's select just these parts. Double click, and a little Essential Graphics tab will pop up on the right, and we'll only edit the point that we selected here. So let's change the text from Tahoma to Wingdings. and it will show wingdings in these parts right here. And it's just so stupid, but I like it. And there you have it. Now you know how to zoom into your clips, speed them up and slow them down, add text, subtitles, and animated graphics for your videos. So this is still a beginner's basics by a beginner. I understand that some of these attempts are quite amateurish, but you know, I'm creating this series as I'm learning, and I'm hoping to take you along for my journey as I continue to improve and learn even more about Adobe Premiere Pro and its various functions, because there's just so much to it, and I'm having a ton of fun learning it as I go along, and I'm grateful that you're willing to join along with me for this journey. If you want to see how else I'm going to edit this clip off screen as so that it's ready for the final delivery, you can go see my previous video on how you make cuts to learn the various keyboard shortcuts and a few of the other various basics that you should know before watching this video. So thank you all so much for your time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.